Did you know that narcissistic abuse victims develop weird habits due to their experience? It's true. When someone goes through the emotional roller coaster of dealing with a narcissist, their mind and body react in some pretty unusual ways. These habits might seem odd at first, but they often stem from a need to cope and protect themselves. From overanalyzing every interaction to feeling anxious in social situations, these behaviors can be puzzling for those who haven't been through them. Today, we will dive into some of these habits. We will uncover what they mean and how they reveal the lasting impact of narcissistic abuse. Are you ready for number 1? Over-apologizing. When you've experienced narcissistic abuse, you might find yourself over-apologizing for everything. It's like you're stuck in a loop, feeling responsible for things you didn't even do. The narcissist conditioned you to believe everything is your fault, even when it's not. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, a leading expert on narcissism, says it's part of the gaslighting cycle, where you're made to feel responsible for things out of your control. This constant need to apologize comes from a deep-rooted fear of conflict or upsetting others, habits you picked up while trying to survive that toxic relationship. Let's talk about number 2, avoiding eye contact. If you've been through narcissistic abuse, you might avoid making eye contact during conversations, even without realizing it. This habit comes from feeling unsafe or intimidated, as narcissists often use eye contact as a tool to control or belittle you. According to therapist Dr. Shannon Thomas, survivors of narcissistic abuse often feel like they're being watched or judged, even in safe environments, so they naturally look away. Avoiding eye contact becomes a defense mechanism, a way to protect yourself from feeling vulnerable or scrutinized, even when you're not in danger anymore. Let's move on to number 3, difficulty accepting compliments. When you've experienced narcissistic abuse, getting a compliment can make you feel anxious or uncomfortable, like you're not sure how to respond. It is because the narcissist often makes you doubt yourself or uses compliments to manipulate you, so genuine praise feels confusing or suspicious. Psychologist Dr. Craig Malkin explains, narcissists tear down your self-worth, making it hard to believe in positive feedback. You might even feel like you don't deserve the compliment, which makes it challenging just to say thank you and accept it. Now, let's continue to number 4. Freezing up when confronted with conflict. If you've dealt with narcissistic abuse, you might find yourself freezing up like a deer caught in headlights whenever conflict arises. It's like your brain suddenly decides to take a vacation, while your body just stands there, looking confused and slightly terrified. It happens because narcissists have a knack for turning arguments into full-blown emotional battles. They make you feel like any disagreement is a life or death situation. As therapist Dr. Judith Orloff explains, survivors often feel overwhelmed in conflict situations, leading them to shut down instead of fighting back or expressing themselves. It's like your brain just hits pause because you're afraid of the consequences. So, instead of standing up for yourself, you end up feeling stuck and silent. You shouldn't miss number 5. Constantly rereading messages before sending them. If you've been through narcissistic abuse, you might find yourself rereading messages like a lawyer prepping for a high-stakes trial just to make sure you don't accidentally spark World War III. You're probably staring at your phone thinking, did I use the right emoji? What if they interpret my lol as sarcasm? It's exhausting. Narcissists can twist your words so much that you end up second-guessing everything you say, like you're tiptoeing through a minefield of miscommunication. As psychologist Dr. Sherry Campbell puts it, survivors often fear that their words can lead to conflict or criticism. So if you're triple-checking that text before hitting send, it's not because you're a perfectionist. It's just your inner peace trying to survive the chaos. Are you still up for number 6? Nervously smiling or laughing in tense or uncomfortable situations. If you've experienced narcissistic abuse, you might find yourself nervously smiling or laughing in tense or uncomfortable situations, almost like a reflex. It happens because you learn to cope with stress by trying to lighten the mood, even when things are serious. Dr. Linda Martinez-Louis, a psychologist who specializes in narcissism, says, survivors often use humor as a shield to protect themselves from emotional pain or conflict. It's your way of diffusing the tension, but it can feel awkward because deep down, you might not find anything funny. You just want to make things feel less threatening, even if it doesn't help. Let's keep it moving to number 7. Flinching at sudden movements or loud sounds. If you've been through narcissistic abuse, you might catch yourself flinching at sudden movements or loud sounds, almost like you're bracing for an attack. This reaction comes from living in a constant state of alertness during your abusive experience, where any unexpected noise or motion felt threatening. As trauma expert Dr. Bessel van der Kolk explains, the body keeps the score of trauma, and survivors often develop hypervigilance as a way to protect themselves. Even when you're in a safe environment, your body still reacts like it's in danger, making you jumpy or anxious over things that shouldn't usually bother you. It's a tough habit to shake off when you've learned to be on high alert for so long. Here comes number 8. Obsessively tidying or organizing things. If you've been through narcissistic abuse, you might find yourself obsessively tidying or organizing everything in sight, like you're preparing for a surprise inspection from a very judgmental army sergeant. It's almost as if your brain says, if I can just make this room spotless, maybe I can control my life too. Narcissists can turn your world upside down, so creating order in your space feels like the only thing you can manage. As life coach Melody Beattie says, when life feels chaotic, we often try to create order where we can. So, if you're rearranging your bookshelf for the 5th time this week, remember, it's not just a love for organization, it's your way of fighting back against the chaos that feels way too familiar. Moving on to number 9. Constantly doubting their memory. If you've been through narcissistic abuse, you might constantly doubt your memory. You feel like your reality could be wrong. It happens because narcissists often twist the truth or deny things, which can leave you second-guessing what happened. As Dr. Jennifer Freyd, a psychologist known for her work on betrayal trauma, says, victims often question their perceptions and memories when their reality has been undermined by someone else. You might find yourself thinking, did that happen? Or am I just imagining it? This kind of doubt can be exhausting. It's hard to trust yourself and your experiences, even when you know deep down that what you remember is true. Finally, we're down to number 10. Minimizing their achievements. If you've been through narcissistic abuse, you might find yourself minimizing your achievements to avoid drawing attention. It happens because during the abuse, you may have been belittled or dismissed. It makes you feel like your successes aren't worth celebrating. Therapist Dr. Tara Well explains, survivors often downplay their accomplishments to avoid the spotlight, fearing that any attention could lead to criticism or backlash. It's like you've learned that being proud of yourself could make you a target, so you downplay your wins and achievements even when you deserve to feel good about them. It can be challenging to break this habit when you've been conditioned to stay small and invisible. In conclusion, understanding the weird habits that come from experiencing narcissistic abuse is crucial. These behaviors aren't just quirks, They are often coping mechanisms born from a painful journey. If you notice these habits in yourself or someone you care about, remember that you are not alone. Healing takes time, and recognizing these patterns is a big step toward recovery. It's important to be patient and kind, both to ourselves and to others. So, whether you are on your healing journey or supporting someone who is, know that it's okay to embrace the weirdness and seek help when needed. After all, everyone deserves to feel safe, understood, and truly themselves again.